I'm open to talking to you despite our quibbles on lawn care products or whatever, because I think it's important to show that although
Hmm.
Devin may disagree with Travis and I may disagree with you, Devin and Travis can still have a conversation and be friends.
All right, guys. Well, I am really excited to get a guest on the podcast this week. I'm joined today by Dr. Travis Shaddox, and I'm going to read some of his credentials because I think it's pretty impressive. Uh, so you have a PhD in soil fertility and grass nutrition from the University of Florida. Is that correct?
Mm. Yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
And you were a former assistant professor at the University of Kentucky. Is that also correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I was actually at the University of Florida for a long time, but as a graduate student and postdoc, and then a assistant professor there briefly, and then I was at UK. Yeah, but most of my history comes from Florida. I was in Florida for almost 20 years in school and work, and also in academia. I've only been in Kentucky for like 8 years, I think 9 years, something like that.
So I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually a chef by trade. I went to culinary school,
Oh,
and that's what I did. That's what I do for a living. I'm a chef,
oh,
and
are you really?
yeah, absolutely, yep. And
Okay,
so
well
I'm
then, so let's just stop right there then, because what I
yeah.
want to know is there any real, because I'm an amateur cook, so but everything I look about or read about or watch, I never really know what's true or not. And so I test it and I try this with cooking with meats and stuff. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't really know if there's any difference or not, but I don't know if I do things consistently. So my question to you is, do you really need to let meat come up to room temperature before you start cooking it after it comes out of the refrigerator? Does it make that much of a difference?
100% yes.
See,
And
that's what I hear. And I go ahead.
the reason for that is because you want the meat to cook evenly. All right. You have a
Uh,
much, so if you think about it, you've got a piece of steak, say you're grilling or roasting chicken or whatever,
yeah.
or maybe you're doing a turkey on Thanksgiving.
Mm,
You've got meat that is what, 38, 36, 37 degrees from being inside your refrigerator. And then you're going to stick it in a 400-degree oven, 300-degree oven. A couple things are going to happen.
yeah.
Number one, you're going to drop the temperature of your oven, which we don't want to do because we're trying to
Mm,
brown meat and cook it. And
yeah.
the outside is going to get done faster than the inside. Now there are certain
Um,
times, like if I'm going to sear a steak, maybe on a skillet or something, yeah, I want that
mhm.
meat cold. But for like anytime you're roasting something, yeah, we want to let that meat sit on that counter for an hour or two,
Yeah.
let it come to room temperature before you cook it. That's
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. So like if you're gonna do a traditional like Pittsburgh medium, which is generally like seared on both sides, but usually a cold pink center is usually if you order it in Pittsburgh, that's what it is anyway.
Hmm.
You would want that to be in the refrigerator first, I'm assuming, correct?
It
Or do
depends
you still let
on
that come to room temperature?
It depends on the cut. So, like a fillet, if you're going to do a
Fillet.
fillet, which
Yeah,
a fillet is usually a little bit thicker piece of meat as opposed to maybe a
yeah,
sirloin or maybe a ribeye. It's got a lot of fat in it.
yeah.
I'm of the opinion I would much rather leave it out at room temperature, let it kind of warm
Really?
up a little bit
Okay.
because that gives me more control
Oh,
of cooking. A, it'll cook faster. It cooks more evenly.
yeah, yeah.
Some chefs will leave it in the refrigerator because they want that cold center.
Yeah.
But it's really personal preference and what you
But see
like.
what I will yeah, see what I okay, that's yeah, so what I would like is to have this the steak. If I eat a fillet, which I almost if I do eat steak, it's almost always fillet. I don't really go for the other meats, and I don't. And it sounds like I eat fillet. I don't. I rarely eat it, but when I do, I want it Pittsburgh medium, but not like in Pittsburgh because you get it cold. You get a cold red center in Pittsburgh. I want it to be a warm pink center throughout, but charred, like really charred, hot on both sides. And so what I did here is I got a outdoor kitchen and I got a I don't have the ability to get up to like 1,000 degrees on like a sear plate, you know.
Hmm.
So I end up getting a what do you call it? Like a griddle outside. It's a nice
Like cast
griddle,
iron.
but it's cast iron griddle, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
But it only gets up to maybe 700 or 800 degrees on the surface. So what I'll do is I'll put the steak in on my grill, like a normal grill, but it's usually on pretty low temperature. When I mean it's like 275 or something. It's really low. But I'll leave it on there for like maybe maybe 7 minutes or 8 minutes on one side and turn it over. So it's like I'm talking really slow and like low heat. And then meanwhile, the griddle's like searing hot, but it's not like 1,000 degrees, right? So I put it over there, and don't get me wrong, it's good. But my internal debate is, well, I'd like it to be a little more juicy. So should I leave it in the refrigerator, or let it warm up outside the refrigerator before I start cooking? And I still can't, like, I'm not consistent enough with the way that I cook to really know if one's making a difference or not. But what you're telling me is you should probably go ahead and let it warm up. Well, I say warm up. I mean, take it
Yeah,
out of the
yeah,
refrigerator.
warm up. That's right. Yeah.
And so yeah, I got to figure that out. Yeah, because I don't want to overcook. The last thing I need to do is like even like 1 minute or 2 minutes, and
It
it's
makes a big
too
difference.
much for me. Yeah, too much for me. So anyway, I didn't know you were a chef. That's very
Yeah.
fascinating. I have a lot of questions for you because I only have like 10 meals that I cook. I feel like I cook them very well, but that's it. I can't really venture outside of my 10 meals. I got a
Right.
steak, I got chicken, I have a chili, I have a lasagna. So just basic, easy stuff.
Yeah.
But I've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, I've been married almost 20 years. I'm like, I got to come up with something new that's easy. I don't mind spending time on it, but I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
spend 7 hours.
Yeah.
But it's easy and it's good for adults, but also like a 10-year-old would eat it. And I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
got to come up with something new. You have any suggestions? Like, what would be like a meal that would be, fairly easy to make, good, like restaurant quality or thereabouts good, but like a 10-year-old would eat it, but also like a 30-year-old adult would eat it. Because my kids love the steak, but I can't spend $60 on a steak every time I want to have steak.
Yeah, we eat a lot of chicken in my house. So I
Yeah.
like to
So give
do,
me your number one recipe for that. What would that be?
I'm a big baked chicken guy. I love roasting
Steak.
chicken, a little rosemary, a little garlic, just buy a
Okay.
whole
So walk
fryer.
me through that. Walk me through that.
Yes.
How do that?
Yeah, so take a whole fryer chicken. I like to rub
Uh,
it down with some olive oil, season it with liberally with some salt and some pepper, and a hot oven,
yeah.
425 degrees. Chicken cooks really, really
Okay.
fast. If you want
Uh,
to shove maybe some butter, some whole rosemary underneath that skin, maybe a couple dabs of butter on there. Cook it
okay.
for 25, 30 minutes till it gets to an
That's
internal
it.
165. Yeah, it doesn't take long at all. Not at that high temperature. Um,
Huh.
and
Okay.
um, and then try to baste some of that butter back on and keep brushing that butter back on that chicken. And it's
Hmm.
phenomenal. That skin gets all crispy and brown and delicious.
Could
And
could it could a I mean, that's something you think an amateur could do. I mean, I'm not a beginner, but I'm definitely not a pro like you. I mean, but I kind of know my way around the kitchen a little bit. Is that something you think I could swing? Like
I,
someone with
I think you could do it. Yeah, I think you can do it
I
for
gotta have to
sure.
you have to send me a recipe or something, like a
Yeah, I
description on how
will.
to do that.
Yeah.
I just need like something different, because it's always the same 10 things.
You and I are going to have a lot more in common, I think, that you realize, because like you're
Okay.
in the lawn, you are a less is more type guy. Am I
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
In the kitchen, I'm a less is more type guy. I'm
Well,
a
that's good to know. Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
fundamentals. If you can roast and you can sear and you can saute and you can and do the what I call the basics correct, you can
Yeah.
be a really good cook.
Yeah, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I can do all that correct. I mean, but I try. I would say the extent of my knowledge is I'm familiar with the importance of time and temperature relative to the size of what you're cooking.
Hmm.
So if I usually make pizza from scratch. So, but when I'm actually cooking the pizza, it takes like 6, 7 minutes. I mean, because you're on a super hot pizza stone, right? So it doesn't
Yep.
take long to cook that. But
Yep.
if I'm going to make bread, I got to lower the temperature down. It's going to be, so I'm familiar with
Hmm.
that. But I don't know like all the, I I don't know all the other stuff. So
Well, the
I might
good part
know.
about food is practice makes perfect, and you get to
Oh yeah,
eat what you mess up,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. No,
that's what
we
I
used to
love.
have some friends come over. I haven't made pizza in a while. I used to make 2 pizzas a week. I did that for 5 years. I made 2 pizzas a week. And the first 2 years, I just totally screwed up. But now some of my wife's friends will come over, or they used to anyway, on Fridays. Like, man, this pizza's good. You should sell this pizza. It's amazing. What they don't know is the first 2 years of making pizza, I screwed everything up because I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, honestly, Devin, for 2 straight years, I was like, it's good enough. Yeah, I don't need to knead it that much. And I was like, well, whatever. But then eventually I was like, you know what? I've been doing this long enough. I need to figure out the right way to do it. So I made a lot of mistakes. I probably made 200 or 300 pizzas that were just horrible until I figured out how to make a good one. So I am with you on the idea that, less is more. And
Yep.
now the pizza that I do make actually is less than what I was doing before in terms of time and effort. It
Yep.
doesn't take that much, Anyway, I didn't mean to go off on that, but
No,
I had
that's
no idea
great.
you were a professional
Yeah.
chef because
Yep. Yep.
um, I'm fascinated with that because I want simple things that a novice like myself could do, but would also be palatable, if you want to call it that, to both
Hmm.
adults and children. And I'm like, man, I can't keep making the same 10 things over. Although,
Right.
10 things, when you rotate it enough, I mean, you can span it out a ways, but
That's
eventually it's like,
right.
okay, I got to come up with something different,
Yep. So
I
you
may be sending you an email about some food.
that's perfectly fine. I love it. So you're living in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Are you a bourbon drinker by chance? Do you
I
enjoy
don't drink
bourbon or?
alcohol. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm. Devin, I'm pretty boring. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do anything exciting. My life is 99% my kids and 1% turf and soil.
There you
So
go.
that's
That's
about it.
great. That's great. So you're
Yeah,
in Kentucky. Kentucky's known for a pretty famous sandwich called a hot brown. Have you ever had a hot
yeah,
brown before?
yeah.
You went.
Actually, no, because when we go to these restaurants that have hot browns, and you're right, it is very famous around here. My wife will get them, and because she's from South America, so she likes to try all these different things. Well, I have although I talked about cooking, I have the dietary limits of like a 7-year-old kid. So when a hot brown comes out, if I assume you're familiar with it, you mentioned it. There's a lot of stuff on that thing, okay?
Mhm.
And I tell my kids like, "Would you like to try some?" And she's like, "No, no, no, I want to try it." I'm like, "Okay, I'm not gonna try it either." But so my wife eats it instead, and she loves them. Yeah,
So, for
yeah.
those that don't know what a hot brown is, it's an open faced turkey sandwich. Typically has like tomatoes. They put a Mornay sauce over it, which is basically like
Mhm.
an Alfredo sauce over the top of it. Maybe a couple strips of bacon, and it was made
It,
famous by the Brown Hotel
oh yeah.
and is it in Lexington? I believe is the where the
There
Brown
was a
Hotel
Brown
is.
Hotel in Lexington, if I recall. That sounds
Yeah,
familiar. I
yeah.
can't recall exactly, but it does sound familiar. Yeah, but it looks and smells delicious. But
Oh yeah.
I haven't really taken the dive yet. But yeah, no, it's in it. But it is a lot. Like one hot brown might be enough for like maybe two people
Yeah,
if
for
you
sure. Yep.
want to split it. But it's a lot. And there's a lot of little restaurants like that around Lexington that I enjoyed that difference from Florida, where you can go outside Lexington. There's these little. You'll be driving in the middle of nowhere. There's horse paddocks everywhere, and then there'll be a little restaurant, literally in the middle of nowhere, and it'll
Hmm.
be packed. And it's these little country restaurants that these local people put up, and they serve food like hot browns and Kentucky and they Kentucky bourbons they serve, and it's
Hmm.
really I don't know, eclectic's not the right word, but it's just really
Yeah.
Lexingtonians. Yeah, I don't know what do you call it, but
Yeah.
it's just very unique, I think, to Lexington. I like it a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's nice.
it's all interesting, and I love the state of Kentucky.
Yeah. Where
Louisville.
are
I've
you
been
at
to
right now?
Louisville. Come
Where do
time.
you live?
I'm in North Carolina, in
Okay.
the mountains of North Carolina. So I'm probably just maybe six or so hours from you.
Okay.
When I was a chef, I used to work for. I was a corporate chef for a flour company, and we made biscuit flour. There's a restaurant called Biscuit Belly as well. That's right in your area. I don't know if you've been there, but they have these
There's one in
ginormous
Lexington.
biscuits,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I just
I'm a
drove by it
big.
2 days ago on the way back from downtown Lexington. Those in Lexington know there's a Biscuit Belly just south of downtown, about 3 blocks. Yeah.
It's,
So,
I love Biscuit Belly. They're like we call them cat head. So in the South, we call them cat head
yeah.
biscuits.
Oh, you do?
And literally
Yeah.
because they're the size of a cat's head. I know it's really
Yeah.
complex stuff, but they make these really fancy biscuits with fried chicken and bacon, pimento cheese, and all this stuff on it.
Yeah.
It's really really cool. So, well,
Yeah.
that is enough
Yeah.
about food, because
Sorry. Yeah. I
that's
mean,
no, that's great.
well, you happen to hit on a topic that I'm very interested in outside of turf grass that I'm trying to get better at. Is that's trying to be cooked. But we'll talk about turf and soil. Let's get going.
No,
Sorry.
you're that's great. That's great. So, take me back for a minute. Like,
Mm.
where does your passion for turf come from? Like, take me back. Like, how did you get into this?
Well, it goes way back when I grew up in Shawnee, Oklahoma, I don't. It's just a series of unforeseen events that sort of lead most people to where they end up going. If I've asked you how did get interested in becoming a cook, you have probably a story that you didn't
Hmm.
know that's where you were starting on when you started. But I just grew up on a very, very poor in a town called Shawnee, Oklahoma. We had no money, and I figured out that hey, I can help mow lawns with Jesse Deere from the church, and I can get $5 a lawn. I'll do that. And then that led into another gentleman from the church named Delbert Toddy, and I started mowing lawns with him. I'm like, well, I can do that. And I started pushing lawn mowers up and down Broadway there in Shawnee, and I mowed lawns for $5 or $10. I was like, well, this is pretty nice. And before you know, this is in the '80s. Before you know, you had $100, $200 in 1980s. So I was like, I can do this. I can get out and work and push a lawnmower up and down the street. So that's how I started. I mean, I just started goofing around doing stuff like that, and then of course it developed into something more cerebral in the long run. But that's how it started. Yeah, it was fortunate in some ways that we had very little because I had to work for anything I got. And my thought process was, well, if I can mow a lawn and get money, I'll do that until something else comes along. And I just sort of stayed with it. Yeah.
So, I mean, you basically took something that you loved or enjoyed doing and turned it
Mm.
into a career, essentially.
Yeah.
So, what when you're in high school, when you're in your 20s, like where did you envision yourself going or doing professionally at
Um,
that time?
I played a lot of sports in junior. People who know me from Shawnee, I played a lot of basketball and baseball and things like that, and a lot of martial arts and stuff. So I didn't really think of a career in like sort of this world at all. I was thinking more athletic wise. So, and then I got to a point where I was venturing into the world of college athletics, and I realized, okay, I'm not that good. Like these guys are just way
We
better
all
than I
have
am.
that moment, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, and then the reality hit me. I'm like, okay, I need to figure out something what I'm going to do with my career. And my neighbor across the street in Broadway there, I was talking to him across the backyard fence, and he said, I came back from college and just visiting for the holidays. And I said, oh, what are you doing? He said he started this turfgrass program in at OSU at Oklahoma State, and I was like, well, that's interesting. Didn't even realize that was a career. And so from there, I started looking into OSU, and then I ended up going to OSU. I thought I was going to be a golf course superintendent and all that stuff. And then towards the latter part of my senior year at OSU, I was looking to stay in the world of science and academia and learn more about it. For some reason, I was always fascinated with how in the world can you figure out how nitrate moves through soil using colors. It just boggled my mind out that someone told me that when the fertility teacher told me that in senior level soil fertility class at OSU. I'm like, how in the world do you do that? And for some reason, that just always stuck in my head. Like, how do you do that? And then I ended up going to graduate school and doing exactly that. So um, that's sort of how I ended up going where I ended up going. It wasn't ever like I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a professor, I'm going to be a scientist. I never thought that at all until I got
Right.
to like maybe when I got first into graduate school, I'm thinking, okay, this might be something I might want to stay with for a while. But it wasn't until then that I realized maybe this is a career I could do.
And so,
Yeah.
why did you choose the University of Florida? I mean, with so many great turf
I,
schools in the
yeah.
Midwest, like why Florida?
Yeah. Well, okay. That's another story. So, I didn't choose Florida. Florida chose me. So what I did was at OSU, when I was at OSU, I applied for the Peace Corps. When I was a senior, I applied for Washington State, Colorado State, and the University of Florida. And I applied for University of Florida because I did an internship in at Hope Sound in Florida at a golf course during my senior year at OSU. I traveled down and stayed in Florida, and while I was down there, I went to the Breakers Hotel. The FTGA that year was at the Breakers Hotel, and it just happened to be while I was down there. And so I went to that Breakers Hotel, and I met a new professor who had just started that year. I must have been 96 or 7. He had just started as a new assistant professor, and his name was Brian Unruh. And then when I went back to OSU and started applying for these things, I applied to OSU or applied to Florida, right? Well, when I was in Florida on my internship, my name was Travis Outlaw. My birth name was Travis Outlaw. And then when I came back to OSU, my grandmother died, who I was extremely close with, my grandma Shaddox.
Hmm.
And so I felt the move to change my last name to Shaddox. So I just felt the need to do that. So I
So
changed my
cool.
last name to Shaddox. And then when I applied to Florida, Brian was like, well, who is this Travis Shaddox guy? And so
Right.
I had to call him, and I said, well, I'm actually Travis Outlaw. I met you at the Breakers. And then that's when he connected the dots. And so Washington State didn't have a position for me. Colorado State didn't have a position for me. Florida, Dr. Under remembered my name because it was so unique, Travis Outlaw. And that's how it went. Yeah, so they chose me. I didn't choose Florida. I'm glad they
My
chose me. I'm no regrets.
Yeah, my father-in-law actually went to the University of Florida. He's an OBGYN and
Mm,
did under what did he? I think he did undergrad at Penn State, but went graduate school in Florida, and so he loved
okay.
Gainesville. Beautiful, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful area and
Yeah.
great school. And yeah.
Yeah. I lived there for 16 or 17 years. My son was born in Gainesville, but I haven't been there since 2013 or 14, something like that. It's been a while. So yeah, it's been a while. It's changed a lot, I'm sure, since I was there. But yeah, Gainesville is a great city. I would have never left Gainesville had things been differently. I would have been happy to stay
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now you're running a YouTube channel, right? I mean, you've got a YouTube channel, and so what made you want to
Mhm.
start a YouTube channel?
Well, okay, so I was at Florida, then I came to Kentucky. My wife is a faculty here at Kentucky, and I was a faculty here at Kentucky. And then the powers that be, one way or the other, decided to shut the turf program down here in Kentucky. And I was in a situation where I had an opportunity to either explore other options outside of Kentucky or stay here and figure out something else. So I stayed here. And so my YouTube channel and what I do online is really more, it's more of a, just a, I don't want to say a hobby, but I mean, it's more of a secondary um, effort, I guess. So I actually run a lot of work and consulting on contracts with other associations that aren't associated with what I do on YouTube. And
Hmm.
so that's where I bring in revenue. And then the YouTube thing came up because I realized in the world of pedagogy that you have to start realizing in academia, at least from my old position, we need to meet people where they are and stop expecting them to just sign up for our classes and show up on Monday morning and listen to a professor talk about soils or turf. I'm not saying don't do that. You can do that. But we also need to figure out some venue or avenue to meet people where they are. So if I go to a conference and I speak to 200 or 300 people, which I will next week actually in Nebraska, um, that's great. Do that. My YouTube channel is getting thousands of views every day. Okay, as I'm sure yours is too. So academia can't compete with that in the classroom. You can't compete with that in the conference center. And I have a very small channel. I mean, I don't know what size yours is, but I think you're about the same size as mine. We have
Hmm.
relatively small
In
channels.
the grand scheme
There's
of
channel,
things, yeah, you're right. We're small
yeah,
potatoes. That's
there
right.
exactly. There's channels out there that have 500,000 subscribers. They'll get
Hmm.
200,000 or 300,000 views on a video, and so we're, or at least me, I'm small potatoes, and I'm still getting thousands of views a day. So the reason I was interested in YouTube is because of that. I don't think we're able to do what we want to do, doing things the way we used to in academia. Does that make sense?
Oh, perfect sense. Yeah.
We can't get to where we want to go if we're going to stay where we're at. And so to me, I thought, okay, let's look at other options to meet people where they are, to communicate with people wherever they are, either get on the bus or get left behind. So I got on the bus and I started that with the Grass Factor guys. And I was like, man, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. And I reached out to some other channels. I'm like, well, I think I'd like to do more of that because I really, it just something about it felt, I don't know, it just felt good. It felt right. Like this is where we need to go, and this is where people are, is what I felt, Devin.
Well,
So
I think
um,
you reach a whole new audience, or
yeah,
maybe a new generation of people that you can bring into the fold where maybe you weren't able to reach them before. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think we are delusional to some degree in academia that we think, okay, we're talking to 200 or 300 people, we're making a difference. Okay, you probably are making a difference. But the guy that just posted a video that went viral and got 1 million views putting out Def Liquid on their lawns, he's making a far larger impact than you do
mm-hmm,
talking at, in
mm-hmm,
Orlando. I'm not saying what he's doing is wrong on YouTube. I'm just saying their impact is greater.
correct. Yeah.
So we need, at least my thought was, I need to figure out a different way to do this. And so I tried it and I liked it. And then I went to some other YouTube people and they weren't really open to that. So I'm like, okay, I'll just start my own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. Yeah, that's kind of how it
So,
developed.
what is your favorite part about the having a YouTube channel? Like, what do you enjoy about it? What's fun about it for you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've fallen into this pattern now where I pick a topic, or sometimes just my members or the subscribers send me an idea, like let's talk about water or talk about whatever, diseases or whatever. And so I like being able to sit on a topic and go over the scientific literature on that topic for a time frame that we don't know yet. So I don't know if I'm going to stop disease. Right now I'm going over diseases on turfgrass epistemology. I don't know if I'm going to stop it next week or if I'm going to stop it 12 months from now. I'm going to keep going over it and over it until I've sort of had my fill of it or the audience has had their fill of it. And then I'll go on to some other topic. So I like that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like the aspect or the concept or the idea that I can't find anybody on the planet that's doing what I'm doing in turfgrass. Sitting down, going over a scientific article, whether the results go left or whether the results go right. I present what the results are, and then I do my best to try and interpret it for the general audience. Now, that doesn't speak to a lot of people. I understand that. I mean, I'm not going to bring in millions of subscribers. I understand that. But if somebody is watching a YouTube video and goes, "Man, that doesn't seem right. Where can I go to find something that's valid, or where can I find the research?" They can go to Turfgrass Epistemology now, whereas before I don't think they had many options. I like that part, Devin. That's a good question.
Yeah. So when I make a video, I try to envision who I'm talking to. I don't know if I
Hmm.
don't know if you do that when you're making a video, or I feel like I kind of know who my audience is and who I'm speaking to. So who would you say your audience is? Like who's watching your
Yeah.
channel? Who are you having conversation with? Are they professionals, turfgrass management professionals, or are they DIYers?
Well, there's going to be a mix of both. Now, when I first started, I would have sworn, I'd have bet the farm that it would have been golf course superintendents because most of my interactions in the academia, because golf course association superintendents are members of associations that fund research and they're more involved and more interactive with academia. I would have sworn it would have been superintendents. As it's come to find out, it's probably 10 or 15% superintendents. Majority are in lawn care. There's some sport turf people and there's some sod people, but the majority are in lawn care. And I don't know what the percentage is, Devin, but there's a lot more DIYers than I thought there would be. I didn't know anything about lawn care YouTube stuff. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know that there were that many DIYers that were looking to YouTube
Why
for
do you
information and
think
stuff.
that is?
I don't. Well, I don't really know. I guess my first thoughts are I don't think the average person knows that turfgrass programs exist at all. I don't think they realize that every state in the United States has a land grant institution. Not every land grant institution has a turf program, but they do have agronomy programs. I mean, that's what the land grant institutions were developed for, were to help farmers. So I don't think the average person really knows. I think that falls back on the hubris of academia, thinking that we got it figured out. We know how to teach and we know how to communicate. We know how to extend that. They did prior to the invention of the mobile phone, prior to the invention
Mm-hmm.
of the internet. But I think we've fallen into a system in academia. I say me when I was in academia. I think I fell into a false belief that our impact was greater than it really is because we're talking to 500 people at a conference. We're going to be in
Mm-hmm.
Orlando next week or 2 weeks from now. We're going to be talking to a bunch of superintendents, so we're having a big impact. What I'm saying is, don't stop doing that. Do that, but realize you're getting left behind if we're not meeting people where they are. And most people are on social media getting their information. So yeah,
I think I think a lot of DIYers in particular just and I'm one of them because I just have a thirst for knowledge. I'm one of those people that just loves to learn,
yeah,
I'm a big believer in the more you know, the more you can grow, and he who knows the most has the most power. So I feel like I just want
mhm,
knowledge. I just want to understand. I want to learn, and YouTube, what I get out of you watching a video is just a time investment. So I look at my time spent watching a video and what do I get for it? And it didn't cost me anything monetarily, but it cost me my time to watch the video. And if I learned
yeah,
something then and it was free, that's a win. I think that's why so many DIYers are watching and learning, is because they really do want to learn more. And I think at the end of the day,
yeah.
my audience in particular wants they want to do things the right way. They want
Yeah.
to they want to do what's right for the environment. They want to do right what's going to be best for their lawn. They don't want to waste money, and I think I think that's what you do such a really good job at, is trying to tell people where you're wasting money or wasting your time, or and
Yeah.
and you come from a professional's point of view, right? It's not just a guy who's just done it for 10 years. I mean, you actually have data and literature to support what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I try to. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably as guilty as anybody else in terms of, you know, holding false beliefs. I mean, I do hold false beliefs like anybody else does, but I try on the world of soils and turf to, to back it up with evidence. That's my goal. I'm sure I've
So,
failed at that
I mean,
sometime.
you know, they always say like science is always changing, right? We know there was a time in my life when they said margarine was bad, okay, and now
Yeah.
they say, oh, butter's good. So, is there anything that you can think of that maybe early on in your career you thought was true that maybe you don't necessarily think that way now? Is there anything that,
Oh yeah. Oh
like,
God.
can you give me
Where
an
should we start?
example? Yeah, give me an example.
I
I'm
can
just
open
curious.
up a well, just soil testing to begin with, right off the bat. I mean, when we were in college, we were taught that this is how soil testing is done. This is how you use the interpretation, and we just go about it. And okay, that's the way we go. 1 + 1 = 2, and it's going to equal 2. And that's the way we go. But that's not the case at all. That's even now. There's great a deal of debate. Not even no. Actually, to think that back, there's not much of a debate. There's a great deal of confusion with soil tests. The debates among scholars like myself, there's not many, and that is soil tests need to be recalibrated or calibrated to begin with. People assume the number, the value, and the interpretation is useful in turf grasses, and so did I. And all the way through my childhood, all the way into really even into graduate school, because my professor was he held that responsibility at the University of Florida, and so I just assumed these values were correct and da da da. And then I got out, I'm like, wait a second, well, how do you know that? And it was pulled from alfalfa, or it was pulled from sorghum, or it was pulled from something else. Why? Because they didn't have any money to do it in turf grass, so they were doing the best they could. But in fact, when we start doing this in turf grass, we realize these numbers are nowhere in the universe close to what we had on those tests compared to other crops like row crops and corn and things like that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of beliefs that I held back then that have proven to be inaccurate for sure. Yeah. I mean, even you have to remember we're in associate we're in an industry, Devin, that we used to apply mercury and arsenic for pesticides. Okay. So there are many, many things we're doing right now that in 50 years, people are going to be looking back and going, what the heck were those guys doing? So we're not, we're moving, we're progressing. And I really like what we're doing with things like acelepryn, these new pesticides that are much safer than the old organophosphates and all these other things. So they're much safer. We're moving in the right direction, but have no delusions. There are things we're doing now that will eventually be seen as harmful for
Of
sure. Yeah,
course, yeah.
yeah,
So you kind of mentioned soil tests. I know that's kind of a hot button topic.
mm,
Because when you start talking about, we're getting ready to roll into spring. I, for one,
mhm,
like to do a soil test in my lawn, only
mm,
because I enjoy doing it, and it kind of gives me a baseline of what's in my soil, right? So
yeah.
why why should I or why shouldn't I do a soil test? What
Um,
am I as a homeowner to gain or to lose by doing a soil test?
well, let's start with when you should use it, because I often get criticized I always say what not to do instead of telling what people should do. And I do tell people what they should do. It's just they kind of gets lost in the message sometimes. So when should you, or what would be the value of soil testing if you have unacceptable lawn from, it could be even something like weeds, or just the color of the turf, or it's not growing fast enough, or whatever the case is. Um, that can be a good reason to soil test. It's possible it could be from the soil related issue. It's probably not, but it could be. So, but what I'm getting at is I would start with, is there a problem you're trying to solve, basically, right? Or have you had a pre-existing condition? So, for example, if you take this to human well-being, if you go, okay, I'm having pain in my side, I probably want to go get a ultrasound done. So you go into the doctor and you say, I'm having some pain in my side. And he's going to say, okay, well, he's going to do some tests. He's going to ask you some questions. Go, okay, yeah, we probably need to do an ultrasound. If you just walk into the doctor and say, give me an ultrasound, he's not going to do that initially. He's going to ask you some questions to confirm you actually need it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's the same thing with soil tests. It's like, let's ask some questions. Do you actually need to take this test or not? There's not a lot of confidence in it. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but is there a good reason? Well, I don't have any pain in my side now, but I did a year or two ago. Well, okay, you've had a chronic issue, you've had a pre-existing condition, so we want to keep track of that over time. So in those senses, in that context, there is some similarities between soil testing and human health, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in those are two cases where I think it would be a good idea to take a soil test. Is your turf unacceptable? Is it not color? Is it's off color? It's not growing well, or has there historically been an issue? Besides that, it would be difficult for me to come up with an idea. I guess if you were doing massive reconstruction, if you were completely renovating, 30 acres of fairways or something, or you're buying new property and you didn't know what the soil was or something. I mean, there's sort of those odd situations like that. I guess you could test to see exactly what you're dealing with. But if on established turf, do you have a problem, or have you had a problem? Those are the two good reasons to soil test. So if you do that, then it's possible you could identify a nutrient deficiency and alleviate that through a soil test, particularly with phosphorus and potassium. Not a whole lot with anything else, but with phosphorus and potassium, you could say, okay, my turf's looking not well, it's looking yellow, or in the case of phosphorus, it's looking a little darker green, a little purplish. I took a soil test and indeed my phosphorus is low, or indeed my potassium is low. Okay, that could be a good reason to apply those two elements. So that's a good reason, or the benefit to a homeowner
Mm-hmm.
of taking a soil test. Does that help? Was there anything else with like the benefits of it before we go to the
No, that's
other
great. Yeah.
question?
No. Yep.
Okay,
That's good.
so that's what I would do. If that's how I would use it. The harm in soil testing, or is there a problem, or why would you not want to soil test? If you soil test when you don't need to, people need to realize that most soil tests. Okay, let me back up. All soil tests, the number on the test is just a number. It's like going to McDonald's and saying a number 16 or a number 8. It doesn't mean anything until you put something else on it. Like how do you interpret a number 8 at McDonald's? Oh, it's a Big Mac with fries and a Coke. Okay, now I know
Mm-hmm.
what the number 8 means. But on a soil test, you're going to get a number back and it's going to say 30 parts per million phosphorus or whatever. Well, to the average homeowner, that's not going to mean anything. They're going to go to the interpretation, and the interpretation is going to say high or low, and you apply so much or don't apply anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for people to understand that the labs and the scholars in this field have to go do that work to interpret that value. And there is some work on phosphorus, there is some work on potassium, but not that much. And it's certainly not to the extent that I would have a great deal of confidence that indeed this value says it's low, and surely enough, it is actually low. I'd be careful with that. We can provide values to people that I would have more confidence in than the lab giving the number back. But whatever, that's another thing. So the risk is you're taking a test, it's going to come back and say, you need to apply phosphorus, when indeed you don't need to apply phosphorus. You're going to apply phosphorus. You're going to increase your costs. You're going to increase the environmental risk, and you're going to increase the risk of weed populations when you didn't need to, because the turfgrass was not deficient in phosphorus. If you do it with potassium, let's say you take a soil test and your potassium is 70 parts per million. That particular lab says that's low. You need to apply potassium. I can say right now with 50 or 70 parts per million, you probably don't need to. So you apply it. You don't really increase environmental risk because potassium is not an element of environmental impairment, but you do increase your costs, and you greatly increase the risk of diseases forming on your lawn. So there is a harm associated with soil testing and following those recommendations if they're not properly interpreted.
So
That would be
okay,
my
so where do
take.
people go? I mean, where do people go? Like if I get my soil test back and it says 70 parts per million, then
Yeah.
where do I go
Well,
to find out if I actually need to do anything or not?
yeah, that's a great question. So what I would do before you even go there, Devin, is I would make sure that everybody understands listening to this, okay? I don't care if you're a homeowner in Alaska or you're in a homeowner in Hawaii or Florida. That soil test value and interpretation means absolutely nothing if you're not going to control for the depth you took it. So if you're just going to go out there and take a sample at 1 inch or 2 inch or 6 inch or 10 inch or whatever, there is nobody on earth that can interpret that accurately. It's not going to mean anything. The value is going to come back and they're going to give you an interpretation, but it's not going to be appropriate. It's not going to be relevant because I have no idea what depth you took it. And neither does the lab. They're going to assume you took it all the same depth. So before you do that, get some method. I don't care how you do it, but get the method and pick a depth. I tend to go with 6 inches, but there's plenty of evidence to use 4 inches too. But go with the depth that the lab recommends and stay at that depth. Get the 6 inch depth, 4 inch depth, and stay with that depth and make sure wherever you go in your lawn on that sampling time, you stay at that depth. And then the next time you do it at the exact same depth because people are looking to see these numbers change over time, which is a horrible way to do it. But the numbers are going to change over time just because you're not maintaining the same depth. Forget, the time of year and the time that you applied the fertilizer, forget all that. That's going to change it too. But just the depth alone is critical. So you send it in correctly, you get the numbers back, and your question is, now what do you do? How does the homeowner interpret their information, or what resource can they use? I would like to say, if you send it to a university, you're going to get back a accurate interpretation. That can be true, but only at particular universities. So, for example, if you send it to the University of Wisconsin, I'm pretty sure you're going to get a very good recommendation and an accurate recommendation back because the professor up there who does that is extremely good at what he does. He's a leading scholar in this field. But if you do that at the University of Florida, there's a lot of political and bureaucratic shenanigans going on there with the committee that runs that show down there. They don't adjust their values to the faculty's data. So the recommendations coming out of the University of Florida, and except for the last year or two, granted, Dr. Unruh's been making great headways down there trying to get that lab to change their values. I understand that. But they've been in the freaking 60s, and they won't change their recommendations despite their faculty showing them that these ranges are too high. So I would like to say go to the university, but it depends.
That's interesting, though, that even between, you would think if A is always the answer, then A should always be the answer. But it sounds like A is not always the answer. It's really up to interpretation onto what someone thinks is best for that turf, right?
Yeah, I know where you're going. It's not. Yeah, I know. You a little faux pas there. It's not what they think per se. I know what you meant, though. We're saying that whatever that professor has,
it's your opinion. You do that, and you go to the doctor and you say, "Hey, doc, I've got a pain in my side," and the doctor says, "Oh, it's this," and then you go get a second opinion. The doctor says, "Oh, there's no way it's that. It's got to be this."
Yeah. Well, okay. Let me clarify things. When you send it to a facility and they give you an accurate interpretation, that is probably from their opinion. When you send it to something like the University of Wisconsin, when that comes back, that is not someone's opinion. That is based upon actual calibrated and correlated data from a study. So that's not an opinion. That is this is the critical limit. We've shown that this is the critical limit on these soils with this turf grass and this element, and we're very, very confident that this is the limit. So I wouldn't say it's an opinion so much as it is a level of confidence, an extremely high level of confidence from the University of Wisconsin. Whereas in Florida, I think you're right. I think it was just that guy's opinion. I think it was just the committee's opinion. This is what it should be. And they're forgetting that their faculty actually have calibrated and correlated data. And I'm picking on Florida, but the same thing holds true at Kentucky. The same thing holds true at a lot of universities. So they tend to be a little bit more in line with the critical limits than the commercial labs. But where I'm going with that is I'd like to say to go to universities, and you're probably better off going to university, but even those universities are not always correctly and accurately interpreting the results. They're probably much more in line than the commercial laboratories, because the commercial laboratories aren't really doing research in turf. They're doing research in soybeans and corn and all these big ag stuff. So, but I'm making it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. And this is why I tell people, I completely disagree on a scientific standard with the concept of MLSN because it has not been published and entered into the scientific model. So I completely disagree with the method, and I don't even disagree with the method. There is no method because it hasn't been entered into the scientific model. So I don't have any method to argue. So once if it ever is entered in the scientific method or the model in scientific literature, then we can discuss it. Having said all that, the values that have come out of the MLSN for phosphorus and potassium. For those who might not know, MLSN, the minimum level of sustainable nutrition, developed by Wendy Kleckner and Larry Stoll and Michael Woods. So the values that they have one number. They'll say phosphorus should be 21 parts per million, right? Now, I would argue that that's at least twice as high as it needs to be. But those are little quibbles that scientists have back and forth. But for the homeowner, these little scientific quibbles can sometimes be distracting. So this is the reason I tell people I disagree with the concept of MLSN because it hasn't been entered into scientific language. But the values, if that's what a homeowner needs to use to be quick and simple, those values are far closer to reality than most university lab interpretations. So just use MLSN is where I'm going. You said, where can people go? Just use MLSN if you don't know how to interpret it yourself. But MLSN is based upon Mehlich 3, and I believe it's at, is it 6 inches? I don't remember now. 6 inches or 4, I can't remember. But it must be Mehlich 3. So go do that. Get your number from the lab, send it to any lab you want, get the number back, look at the number, and it's going to say, sometimes it says pounds per acre, but let's say it says 100 pounds per acre potassium. Well, that's 6 inches, that's 50 parts per million.
Right.
And that's greater than the 37 parts per million potassium on MLSN. So those MLSN values make it quick and simple and easy for someone to interpret it with. And I feel comfortable, I should say I feel more comfortable with those values than just any commercial lab that you throw it to. I don't know where they got the number from.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I would do. If you didn't know where to go, that's
great.
What I would do.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to quickly kind of maybe address what I would call maybe the elephant in the room. Because I know when I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I want to get you on the podcast and just have a conversation with you. And you said, hey, I just want you to know, I've made a couple critical videos of some things that you've done, and so, and the video that you were the most critical of was, I had made a video showing all the, I called them essential products that a homeowner needs to have a really nice looking lawn. And so my question to you is like, what do you think is essential for a nice looking lawn? Like what do you consider essential?
Okay, so for essentiality, I'll still use the pyramid of risk. So what is essential? You must first, before anything else, ensure your water is optimum levels. So you can go buy all the nitrogen you want and all the wetting agents you want and all the pesticides you want. If you're sitting in a swamp in, Weston, Florida or wherever, I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're in Las Vegas and you have no ability to apply water, it doesn't matter. So the first thing that I would do, what is essential, is doing what is reasonably necessary, what is reasonable for you in terms of your budget, to put the resources in and the infrastructure in to keep water at an optimum level. And what is an optimum level? It's fill capacity. That's going to be different the percentage is going to be different for every soil. So
it's weather dependent as well.
Yeah, you don't want it to be too wet. You don't want it to be too dry. So that alone is going to solve so many problems. It's going to prevent it from even coming up at all. So step one, look at your water, check your water, do an irrigation audit at least once a year, not just for coverage, but for the quantity. You can, if you don't have the scientific instruments, which probably people don't, you can at least get a spade and spade down and kind of just.
I use a screwdriver. I use a screwdriver. Yeah.
Just feel the soil. Is it moist? Is it sitting in water? If it's sitting in water, what's wrong? Is it irrigation running, or is it just your slope of your land is not allowing for drainage? I mean, what is it? So I would spend half my time just doing that. I mean, because it's going to solve a lot of problems. But then after that, I would condition myself condition myself to realize we're in nature. We are organisms of nature. I mean, our bodies respond to weather fronts, whether we know it or not. They respond to heat, and we get sunburned, and we get dried skin, all these other things. So we respond to nature. The plant is always outside, and it's responding to light and temperature far more than I think people realize. So the next thing is condition your expectations to what your canvas of your lawn is capable of achieving. If you want Augusta National fairways and you have, 100-year-old live oak on every corner of your lawn, you're
Your
not going to achieve
expectations
that. There's
don't.
too much
That's right.
shade.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Your expectations do not match your canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying go down there and cut down those live oaks, but if you have dead trees or diseased trees, remove some of those, trim the trees up. I mean, in other words, you can work within some boundaries to increase the amount of light that your lawn is exposed to. Or if you're not going to remove trees, which I'm not saying go remove trees, but if you're going to leave the trees, then you need to find a plant that will be suitable for that location, that will grow in that much shade, and it's
Mm-hmm.
probably not a warm season grass. It might not even be a cool season grass. So one is water, two is your expectations with light and temperature. And then three, what is essential is, in my opinion, Devin, there's almost nothing more important. So water, light, and temperature. I got that. But then the next thing is keep your lawnmower blades as sharp as you can reasonably keep them. There is nothing we do that's more damaging to lawns than cutting it. So if you're with a rotary mower, and at University of Kentucky, they'll have this annual lawnmower tune-up thing, and they'll do it once a year. These people go in and they use the facility and use the service, and they get their lawnmower blade sharpened once a year. That's fine if your expectations are kind of like, eh.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Mm-hmm.
want really nice looking lawns, you're going to be sharpening that blade once every 2 or 3 weeks, probably.
Depending on your mowing frequency. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And the
Yep.
height of cut, the type of grass, all these things. I mean, it depends on what quality you're looking for. If you want really good looking lawn, what is essential to me? Real mower. You're not going to be able to go to, or you're only going to be able to achieve a certain level with a rotary mower before you realize no matter what you throw at it, my expectations aren't going to be met unless I get a real mower. It's just that simple. So those are the 3 or 4 things that I would focus on as essential. Now I know that's probably not what you were aiming for.
No,
You
well,
might
no,
be
and
aiming for
so
something else.
I guess so two things. Number one, something that I preach a lot on my channel is people need to focus on the basics. It seems like so many homeowners are so focused and worried about applying products to the lawn when they're not
Yeah,
mowing correctly, they're not watering correctly, they're not
exactly.
feeding correctly. If you're not like, and I think that's what you're saying. If you're not going to do those three things correctly, nothing else is really going to matter, right?
Yeah,
But I
it's not.
think in that video that I made, I was more talking about the products, and I think what you took
Yeah.
exception to was the number of products that I was showing.
Yeah.
And
Oh, okay. Well, if you want me to speak of that specifically, I can do that. Yeah.
well, no, it was just, and I was showing, I had fungicides on the table. I had a couple weed control pests. I had a fungicide on the table. I had some pest control.
Hmm.
Um, I had some herbicides on there. So, you know, thinking about what is essential, yes, mowing, watering, and feeding. If you're not going to do those three correctly, then I don't think any of it really matters. But there's,
Mm.
you know, I mean, would you call weed control, an herbicide essential? Would you call
It
a fungicide essential? Here in the South, I call a fungicide essential because we deal
okay.
with
That's
brown patch. And so,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So you have to qualify. If you're going to make it essential, then you have to qualify what homeowner expectations are you talking to? Because 95% of the people, I don't even know anybody in my neighborhood that even applies fungicides, and they're all fine with their lawns. So it's not essential for them, but their standards or expectations are probably not what your expectations are.
I agree.
So
That's a
if you're gonna
great statement. Yeah.
yeah, so if you're going to do that, you're going to say this is essential. You must apply. It's absolutely necessary that you apply fungicides. I'm going to say I almost never apply fungicides, and my lawn's perfectly fine. This last year I actually did twice, but I almost never do it. I almost never apply insecticides ever. It just one because I just forget about it and I don't really particularly care. Okay, but if you're going to tell me I want a 9 on the quality scale for as many days as possible, those are going to be my expectations. Okay, then you're going to move yourself into a very small percentage of the population. And for that percentage of the population, then yes, I would say these products are probably going to be necessary to achieve your
Hmm.
expectations. Yes.
Yeah. I
Now, so
100%
first of
agree
all,
with that.
let me just first say this, is that when we did talk on the phone about this, I wanted to make sure that you were aware that, I didn't want you to, have me come on your show and then not realize that I had critiqued you. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to, like, have your guys go, wait a second, these guys, Dr. Shattuck said this. No. And the reason I chose to, and we talked about this beforehand, is that this speaks to your character because I did critique your content, as I have many other YouTubers, and a couple of them will call me up or will email me and say, you know what, Dr. Shattuck, I understand what you said, and I think I need to clarify myself. And they clarify themselves, but then they realize later, it's like, you know what, yeah, he was right, and I need to change my behavior. But a lot of people won't, Devin, and you did. You said, you know what, I'm going to call. I'm not saying you're acknowledging anything you did right or wrong. I'm just saying that you at least would come up and talk to me, call me, and say, you know what, let's discuss this. You and I can disagree on everything on earth, but we can do things in a civil
Mm-hmm.
discourse. And I think that's something that our society is missing now, because you're a Republican and you're a Democrat and
Mm-hmm.
you're this and
Yeah.
you're that, and we can't be friends and talk. Now, I'm not condoning some of the products that you're doing, talking about in
I
your
understand.
show, but it has nothing to do with Devin as a man. I mean, I still respect you as a person, and we can still be, friendly and have civil discourse. And so that's the reason I decided. I'm saying that to say this. That's the reason I decided to come on this show, was to show that I'm open to talking to you despite our quibbles on lawn care products or whatever, because I think it's important to show that although
Mm-hmm.
Devin may disagree with Travis and I may disagree with you, Devin and Travis can still have a conversation and be friends.
I found out a long time ago that, and I'll as I just said it in my mind, it makes me laugh. My dad was right. I
Mm,
just didn't like his tone, right? And I think
yeah,
that's part of what maybe kind of what goes on with your channel a little bit is I think people just don't like your
mm.
tone a little bit sometimes, but that
No,
doesn't mean that you're necessarily wrong. It's just how it's perceived. And I think, yeah, I mean, when I made that video and I was talking about the things that are essential, um, hindsight being what it is, yeah, I mean, I probably should have done a better job clarifying or saying what I really wanted to say was, if you want a high end lawn, those, as you've alluded to, grass will grow on the side of the interstate if you don't do even if you don't do anything to it. But
yeah,
in my opinion, I'm trying to grow a lawn that looks a whole lot better than just the grass on the
yeah.
side of the interstate. But I digress.
Your expectations are very high. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and one other interest I had in that, just while we're on the topic, is, and this is something I haven't mentioned on my channel, I don't think I have, is that when we see YouTube videos go out and we see, because your video wasn't the only video, there's dozens of other videos that have all these products, right? But what you don't necessarily, well, I don't know what you encounter, but what I suspect you don't encounter is what I encounter as an academician, as a scholar, is that we have to deal with these government agencies that are coming to us wanting to constantly institute more and more policies and more oversight. And we're on the front line going, you know, congressperson and senator and sometimes the governor, we're like, okay, we have the BMPs in place. We're training people. We're doing what we can to inform them what to do and what to do right. And then we have a video go out that gets 1 million views, and it shows the context of it with all these products and all these chemicals is ripe
It looks
picking grounds.
irresponsible. It looks
Exactly.
irresponsible. Yeah,
It's
I
not
get
within
it.
the yeah. The context looks bad because they don't know that 2.5 gallon jug is going to last you for 3 years and it's going to go over however many acres. They just see a 2.5 jug of chemicals and they can put that up at a council meeting and say, look what everybody's putting on their lawns. And so it's not a good message outside of the context. It's not, doesn't have any context to it, is what I'm saying.
I think we as YouTubers have a responsibility to make sure that we are portraying ourselves in a way that not only keeps the homeowner safe, but does what's right for the environment and does what's best for the turf. And yeah, I mean, certainly having a table full of products looks really bad. It looks like the wild, wild west out there. And you got some rookie out there just spraying stuff all over his lawn, doesn't know what he's doing. And I really try to preach on my channel that, I really try to do integrated pest management. I believe in that. I try to preach that. I think that's important to do the right thing for the environment. I watch videos of YouTubers that, will just throw down a fungicide, even though they haven't properly identified the fungus, and that drives me
Oh yeah.
crazy. I try to preach
Oh
that,
yeah.
so I think we have a responsibility to, if we're, and this goes right back to what we were talking about in the very beginning, our reach. I'm a little YouTuber. I don't reach that many people, but
Mhm.
1,000 people watch my video and they see me spraying a fungicide. It's important for me to let people know to do it the right way. You need to be wearing your
Yeah.
PPE. You need to
Yeah.
make sure you're properly identifying that fungus before you're just throwing something at it. Um,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
we have that responsibility. So
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
what your video did for me was help me realize that, even though, like I said, I didn't like your tone, but but you were right. And
I'm an
it's,
acquired I'm an acquired taste, to say the least. So I've said this before. I mean, some people will respond to the manner in which I teach on YouTube, and some people won't. They won't respond to it. Some people may respond to Devin better than they respond to me. My interest is not who gets us there, but that we get there. I don't care. This isn't a race. I don't care who's in the front. I just care that collectively our industry is moving more and more towards correct best management practices, whether they follow Devin or whether they follow me or follow somebody else. And so, I guess what I'm saying is it you know there's a lot of people who don't respond to the way I speak, and I totally get that.
yeah,
I mean, I watch myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. I have these nervous ticks and I have all these peculiar foibles and just
right.
strange. But but no, I mean, what you do is fine, and what you said in the video is probably fine. But I'm looking at it from a different context. I was like, man, I got to go and sit in front of these council people and explain to someone's going to put a video up like this, and I'm going to have to explain all this stuff. Well, he said
Hmm.
this, but you don't realize it's going to last for 3 or 4 years. You don't
Right.
realize he's actually has a restricted pesticide license. I mean, all these things they don't realize in these a lot of the government meetings. They don't understand any of this stuff, and it's a poor picture. And I'll just say this is that one thing that irks me even more than that is when people show on Twitter these big Adams 2-ton spreader with all this fertilizer, because we have literally seen photos of that in council meetings, because the councils don't understand. They're spreading that over like 10 acres or 15 acres. They're not spreading that over a lawn, but they don't know
Hmm.
that. And so it's a constant battle. So I took a little bit of offense to it because I'm particularly sensitive to the visualization of that
I get it.
in the context of government oversight and policy making.
So another question I have, I mean, so generally speaking, is YouTube lawn care community, is it helping or is it hurting? Is it making, from your perspective, is it making things worse, or or are we helping?
I don't know. That's a good question, Devin. I mean, I didn't really know anything about YouTube lawn care space. It seems like recently things have started to die down. I don't know. Have you noticed the same thing? It doesn't seem there's many videos popping up anymore, but
There's
maybe it's
definitely,
me.
I've had this conversation with some of my other YouTube friends, and I just, there's been I guess I call it like maybe a new generation of people. There are a lot of guys that have been doing it maybe 10 or
Okay.
15 years ago that now are gone. And you've got kind of some newer, but the challenge with lawn care is it's the same thing every year. I mean, I
Yeah.
apply the same products about the same time every year. I start mowing about the same time every year. I finish, you know,
Yeah.
so it's, I mean, how many times can you talk about,
Yeah.
mowing your lawn, or, you know what I mean? So you kind of get burned out. And so
Yeah.
you have to,
Yeah.
you kind of have to start doing some other things. And I think people just,
Yeah.
it's not fun for them anymore, but I mean,
I would say I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
well,
Good.
I think people just get, I think people get burned out, and
Yeah.
YouTubers do. And I think there's a lot of fatigue in the viewership because, when you
Yeah.
type into that search bar, brown patch fungus, there's a 10,000 videos on brown patch fungus. So why do I
Yeah.
need to make another
Yeah.
video about brown patch?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know. Now that I've thought about it a minute, I think the lawn care YouTubers do both. They help and hurt, probably like I do. Anybody does, I guess. There's good and bad, but I think where they could excel in do better at is just talking about like um, activities or management practices that that are outside of the realm of science. Like, for example, like how to sharpen your blades or what type of mower. There's these mower comparison things all the time. Those are, appropriate. I think it would help in those regards. Now, what they found with this particular irrigation head or irrigation clocks, which ones they found, these wireless irrigation clocks sometimes I found some value in some of those videos. Where I take exception to it is when they move into the realm of science and teaching. They move into, this is how much water you should apply. Well, hold on, you know, this is the type of nitrogen you should apply. Well, hold on. Let's wait a second here. Okay, well, where did you get this information from? Because those we have data for. Those we have research for. We have scholars that work on this their entire career. And so if I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just saying if you're going to do it, I would hope that they would follow the science. And there's very few that, well, I mean, I'm sure they exist, but there's very few that I see that are, you know, referencing scientific literature. I say, so and so and so and so found you should be applying a pound in or whatever. So that's where I think I have a particular sensitivity. It's not like, I just wish they'd talk about the how to sort of, like, these sorts of things, and stay out of the science teaching part. Like, this is how to soil test. Okay, you can show me the instrument and the bags and where to send it. But you're going to talk about soil depth, and you're going to talk about extraction. You're going to talk about like how to read the soil test and compare soil test. That's science. And I don't, unless they have a background in that and they've been trained in that, I think they're doing more harm than help.
So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. What is it? Men in Black. Have you seen the movie Men in Black?
Oh, yeah.
They have
Oh,
that
yeah.
little mind eraser thing that
Yeah.
that like makes your
What do
memory
they
go
call
away.
neuralizer? It's the neuralizer.
They're a neuralizer. Okay, so if you could take a neuralizer to the lawn care community and like get rid of like one thing that people remember, like maybe a bad habit, or what would it be? Like, is there anything in particular that you'd like to just get rid of? Erase from people's memory so that we don't have to cover that anymore.
Um, can I do the opposite and like implant something into their
Sure.
brain so where
Yeah,
they
let's
would,
go for it.
and that would be the importance of water optimization. I would zap that, and I would, after he does that, Will Smith tells them like what he tells them something after he neuralizes the
Yeah, yeah,
brain,
yeah.
and that's what they remember. I would zap them, and I would say, water optimization is more critical than anything you're going to do to your lawn. Okay. That's the most important thing. So I would try to make sure that they remembered that. As far as removing something, I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. I guess off the top of my head,
No, I like it. I like you're 100% correct. The water is so stinking important, and
yeah, yeah,
it can cause a whole host of issues watering
yeah,
incorrectly. And I have an irrigation system, and I have found that I actually water less now with an irrigation system than I ever had when I didn't have
good.
one. So
Good. And and I guess that's the next step, is not just water optimization, but the majority of time, I mean, more than 50% of the time when water is a problem, it's because they're applying too much water. A lot of
mhm.
homeowners say, well, I want to apply it. I'm going to turn on the irrigation clock and it's going to go on 3 times a week for whatever, 10 minutes or whatever the case is. And then they don't turn it off. And meanwhile, it rained an inch already this week and it keeps going. I mean,
Drives me
it drives me
crazy.
nuts. I've had it on my YouTube channel where I leave my HOA in the morning to take my daughter to school. It's 7 a.m. I come back and there's water just pouring down the street from the flower bed that the HOA is irrigating, and it's raining. So I guess if I could go back, maybe I'd be more specific and I'd say, turn your clocks off and then turn them
Yes.
on when you need to, rather than leave them on and let them automatically turn off when you don't need them.
I
That would
hate
solve a lot of
those
problems.
automatics. The set it and forget it. The
Yeah,
old
it's a big problem.
yeah, it
It
absolutely
it
is.
creates a lot of problems downstream. I mean, metaphorically and literally. I mean, I had Dr. Miller on, I guess, a couple months ago, or whatever it was, and he was saying the same thing. The irrigation clocks are where he gets most of his disease samples from, are from lawns that have irrigation, in-ground
Hmm.
irrigation, because they turn it on, they assume it's just running, they forget about it, and as I would too, probably if I had a clock, I'd probably just forget about it and it'd just be running, and
Yep.
before you know it, you've got 2 or 3 times more water than you need to, and that's just ripe for disease.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I
Well,
really appreciate you coming on, and I think it's been wonderful. I've got a list of questions. I probably got 10 more that I'd love to pick. Maybe I'll get
okay.
you back on one day when we'll
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
keep talking. It's
Yeah.
just been phenomenal. So the
Yeah,
one
well, you
last
can
thing,
blame me. I spent so much time talking about food, I kinda took too
and
much
we
of your
can come
time. I'm
back
sorry
and do
about that.
that too. I'd love it. If I know you mentioned maybe starting a podcast. If you ever end up doing that and you want to have me on as a guest and talk
Yeah,
food, let's
yeah.
do it. I'm down. I'm down.
Yeah, well, I do turn my show into a podcast. I mean, it is on YouTube and on all the podcasts
Yeah.
on audio format. And by the way, I guess I can shamelessly plug, I opened up a website just this last week called turfgrassepistemology.com. So if I can shamelessly plug that, and people can go there and learn more information about what I
Yeah,
do.
I'll link that down below in the comment section as well. So,
Thanks.
so what is
Yeah.
your website? What is that to be used for? Like, what are you?
Well, primarily, I mean, it's just basic information about me and YouTube and podcasts. But what I'm using it really more for is a conduit for courses. So I'm developing soils courses. Right now, there's a course over there for, I have introductory soils. And then in there, there's a variety of courses that they're posted. They're not released yet, but the first one is released. And these are courses that a homeowner or a business person or somebody that wants more information but doesn't want to spend the time or money to go get a college degree, it's the same lectures that I would give in an undergraduate soils class. So, like the first course is soils and soil formation. So we talk. It's not my YouTube show. It's like a
Right.
formal, university lecture that I would talk about soils and around us and soil formation and soil classification. And so, for those people that really want to dive in more and learn more about soils, and then there'll be one on turf grass and so forth. Then the website is really more of a foundation and a
Hmm.
conduit to allow people to go in and use the courses that I've developed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work, a lot of time.
Oh
That's
god, it does.
something that they'll. I know. I'm not afraid to say that on my channel. I mean, I appreciate the viewers because they make all of this possible. I mean, all the
It does.
time,
They really
money,
do.
effort spent doing this.
Yeah.
And we're little guys, so to
Yeah.
have somebody watch it's great. So before I let
Yeah.
you go, like when when somebody comes to your channel, what are you hoping that they take away? Like what?
Mm. Excellent question. Yeah. Excellent question. Man, you would I mean, I'd like to say that, we discussed this beforehand. So, but no, we didn't. This is an excellent question. I I use what do I want people to take away from my channel? I want people to take away from my channel that they went there, they learned a little bit about soils and turf or something like that, but they left there thinking, what is a logical fallacy? What are you talking about critical thinking? And I've got so many emails, Devin, from people who have done exactly that. They send me emails like, you mentioned this thing about a 2 quo K, and you mentioned this about composition division. And I had to go look it up. And I realized, like, man, I'm using that in my actual life now, not just my lawn.
Hmm.
And that's what I want people to get. I want people to understand that I'm using soils and turf, but I'm teaching critical thinking skills. That's the reason the show's called Turfgrass Epistemology and not Turfgrass Fertility, right? So I'm teaching epistemology. I'm just using soils and turf as my means to an end. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking my phone call and setting this up. I've been wanting to get you on for a while now, so I appreciate it. I hope you
Oh
have.
yeah.
Well, one more question. I'm sorry. What is
Okay. Go
20?
ahead.
What does 2026 look like for you? What plans do you have? I mean, you talked a little bit about the website. Like, what can people look forward to from you this season coming up?
Yeah, I'm speaking. Well, I do my normal lecture tours. I'll be in Nebraska and Virginia, and that'll be this next month. And then in September, October, I'll start my normal lecture tour in Florida. I think I'll be in Kansas City. I'll be right now. I think it's just Florida and Kansas City, but those will pile up. So I'll do my normal lecture tour. But my goal this year is to have these 4 courses released on my website so that I can have a full introductory soils undergraduate level knowledge base database basically for people to go. And once they purchase it, they have lifetime access to those courses. They can go and explore that as much as they want. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and for at least turfgrass
That's
epistemology. Now I
awesome.
have all other stuff going on in my world. I mean, I
Yeah.
work with associations that are actually publishing work on nutrient work in golf courses and water work in golf. We just published a paper last, I guess, 2 months ago on waters on golf courses. And so right now, actually, literally this week, I'll be getting data from the National Golf Foundation, and then we'll be running those data and doing all that publication, and I'll be doing all my normal, association work with that project. So, but yeah, that's what I expect to do. I'm working on courses and trying to get a
Okay.
more opportunity for people to gain knowledge in the world of soils
Yeah.
and turf and critical thinking skills.
I wish you the best. Hope it's a great year. I'm ready to be out mowing again, and winter's just it's so depressing. So I'm ready to get out there and start mowing. So I really
Is it
do
really cold
appreciate
there
your
where you're
time.
at? I mean, is it cold weather there, or is it like transition where you're at?
We're transition, but it's still like
Okay.
rain and 50, and it's just
Okay.
the sun just doesn't shine like it's supposed to. There's no the
Oh,
grass is just kind
okay.
of meh. The bushes are
Uh,
kind of brown. It's just I don't know.
yeah.
Like I want
Okay.
vibrant green and growing and mowers,
Yeah.
and I just really enjoy
It
that
sounds a lot
stuff.
like
So
Lexington. We're a
our
transition too, so yeah, it
yeah,
sounds a lot like Lexington. It gets hot, but it's also not. It's not always cold, and it's not always hot. So we're sort of in the middle all the time.
we're very similar. Our weather patterns are very, very similar. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Devin, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I had a good time.
Same to you. Thank you so much. And I'll leave a link down below where people can find you and your channel and all that good stuff too. So we'll be sure to
Thanks.
link on that below. Yeah.